Okay. So we are about to start. A very good evening to one and all. We all know that the state of Kerala is about to initiate the 4-year degree program from the next academic year onwards. And as a part of that, the Kerala Economic Association has started a series of workshops and seminars to discuss the curriculum content of the upcoming 4-year degree program. And it is as a part of that, we have now focused upon what should be the curriculum content of our economics program, especially with respect to microeconomics and mathematical methods. And we are highly fortunate to have Professor Anjan Mukherji of formerly at Jawaharlal University, New Delhi, as the resource person. We very well know that he has made the pioneering contribution in mathematical economics in our country. And he has made some very fundamental contributions regarding the formidable area of general equilibrium theory. We are highly fortunate, and on behalf of the Kerala Economic Association and on behalf of all the participants, all the persons who has joined with us in this Zoom platform, I extend you, sir, a hearty welcome from our heart, from the depth of our heart to this program. And we have the president of the Kerala Economic Association, Professor Harilal of Center for Development Studies, Professor KJ Joseph, the former president of Kerala Economic Association, the director of Gulati Institute of Finance and Taxation, and currently the chair of the session, Professor S. Harikumar, former dean of Faculty of Social Sciences, Cochin University of Science and Technology. On behalf of the participants and behalf of the Kerala Economic Association, I extend you all a hearty welcome. So with these words, I wind up my initial speech. And before that, I extend a hearty welcome to all the participants who has joined with us in this Zoom platform from all over our country, from universities and colleges spread over across states. We have registered more than 400 participants, and currently we are having their presence around 100 participants have joined right now. So on behalf of the Kerala Economic Association, I extend a hearty welcome to all of the participants. And I hand over the session to the introductory remarks by our beloved president, Professor Harilal, sir. Thank you.
Professor Anjan Mukherji, Professor Harikumar, Professor KJ Joseph, Sri Santosh Verghese, Dr. Godwin, and participants of this session. Good afternoon, everybody. I am personally feeling very happy because we are getting Professor Anjan Mukherji to take this class for KEA. I am feeling happy because I never had the privilege of attending Professor Anjan's class. In fact, at the same time, I've got very good commentaries, great commentaries about, of course, his contributions to economics, mathematical economics, but about his classes also. So it's a great opportunity to listen to him, and I think all the participants feel the same way. So we are all happy that Professor Anjan Mukherji is with us and he's going to take this class. And he has promised to take more classes as a part of this program. And we hope that we will be able to announce the schedule of his classes later after discussing with him about his convenience and all. Anyway, more classes are going to come. And the context our General Secretary explained, Kerala is preparing for a major curriculum shift, and KEA is involved in the process in different ways. And KEA is, we have taken a decision to help teachers as well as students in preparing for the change in curriculum. And we are looking forward to continuous help from Professor Anjan Mukherji and senior teachers in Delhi, and of course from other centers also. So far, things are moving as we planned. And now I'm not going to take more time. Let me invite Professor Harikumar to chair today's session. Harikumar.
Professor Anjan Mukherji, sir. Professor Jawaharlal, the president of KEA, Professor KJ Joseph, Santosh T. Varghese, secretary of KEA, Godwin, treasurer of KEA, and other participants attending this function. We are eagerly waiting to attend a class by Professor Anjan Mukherji of JNU on the application of mathematical methods in economic theory. There are actually there is some controversy also whether this mathematical methods is to be used in economic theory or not. If you look at that literature, then you will be getting something on connected with this argument. How we can take the view of Samuelson, who very clearly says that these economic variables tend to be internally heterogeneous, making it difficult to capture them numerically, especially averages. So the significance is only by its relation to the whole. In other words, there are many variables, complex variables, related variables are them. Then looking at the number alone may not be, or we may not be able to grasp up the relationship, the movement, etc. For that purpose, we need a mathematical approach in it. Further, we can also say that in especially in solving many economic problems, there a precise understanding of relationship, then precise way of looking at the relevance, the rigorous in analysis, etc., can be achieved only through the mathematical method. There is no doubt that relevance and rigor must go together in our analysis. However, we need a mathematical approach in developing the understanding the microeconomic theory or economic theories, and also applying to solve the basic economic issues. Moreover, we know that why we go for a curriculum shift. We go for a curriculum shift, especially when we are thinking about, or we are worried about, the employability of our younger generation or students. Why they are not, especially from Kerala, why this happened. Now, basically, we can find that there are many reasons. One of the reasons, especially economics students are concerned, they are not in a capable manner, or they are not capable to look at these issues after completing their, even after completing a PG program. Only very few students get success out of it. So either to solve it, to be absorbed in the industry, or to be in academics, a proper understanding of this is essential. That is why KE is initiating such a move for curriculum restructuring, to help curriculum restructuring in universities in Kerala. For that purpose, we need trained the faculty members. We need oriented them, proper orientation for them. Many are afraid of it. So that orientation we have to, or we are supplementing to teachers, students, and etc. Today, we are fortunate to have a Professor Anjan Mukherji, and he has contributed many papers in leading journals, international journals. However, as teachers in economics and for students in economics, we must be thankful to Anjan Mukherji sir for especially his famous book, Mathematical Methods and Economic Theory, when he was holding the chair of RBI in RBI chair in Jain. There's a wonderful book that we have to read it. There are many other textbooks that we follow, but if you are looking at the mathematical economics at the right perspective, we have to consider this book. But haven't seen this book any of the references in any of the university, including the department in which I work. Therefore, it is in this context we are actually organizing this program, and I hope that this will be a useful session to all of us attending this. And as far as those who are attending this program, I have a small request that you can put your questions in the chat box, and the questions must be in a precise manner, and whether the questions will be answered at the end of the lecture. Clarifications during the lecture is possible only if Professor Anjan Mukherji permits. I don't think that it will be, being an online program, that may not be helpful to all of us. Therefore, it is always better to pose your questions at the end of the session. And also is very thankful if you give it in the chat box, and we will be passing that to him, and he will be addressing those issues. With these few words, let me conclude, and I sincerely and respectfully invite Professor Anjan Mukherji to deliver the talk. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for a warm introduction. I'm somewhat scared when you say that you expect more lectures. I thought my lecturing days are over, but I try, because one of the things that I do almost every time I speak, people complain that I am lecturing. So I might as well lecture in an appropriate framework. You see, in JNU, I had tried to start a proper undergraduate program, but none of my colleagues wanted it. And I thought I was the only person. So whenever I opened my mouth, they said, hey, this is Anjan back again trying to start this nonsense. But I think it is the most essential program in any subject, the undergraduate program. And I'm glad that you are thinking ahead about a 4-year program. Imagine what you can achieve, because you've got the students who are fresh from schools, bright, and you can give them so much, so that the master's program really becomes redundant at some stage. I believe that economics is a very, very tough subject, because it is the only subject that I know that is essentially multidisciplinary. History, political science, mathematics, statistics, psychology, and philosophy, all these subjects are required. You need history to understand the current situation. You need political science and an awareness of the politics of the place to figure what I don't think there is any doubt that you need mathematics and statistics, and you need psychology, and you need philosophy. And you need all these subjects. So you need to have at least a good grasp of some of them. And today we have been asked to talk about mathematics and microeconomics. I think that too is a bit of a problem. You know, there is a problem with economics. You see, you often hear people talk about some names which definitions are not given. You hear neoclassical, you hear neoliberal. Now, these phrases mean different things to different people. And what you need to do is to be able to define this, and therefore to have a mathematical or a formal training in any one of them. That is, when you say something, you know what it means. Very often people don't, it seems. So the criticism of one school of thought, as if other schools of thought do not have a better way of analyzing situations. So these criticisms against schools of thought, I think as teachers of economics and an undergraduate stage, the task is much more difficult because you may be able to confuse students, but keep their minds clean, let them make up their minds, give them the concepts, give them the structures, and let them make up their minds. I think that is very important. Now, also, when people write in economics, there are all kinds of problems. I mean, I think instead of talking about economics, we talk about macro, we talk about micro, we talk about trade, growth, development, and then many other things. As if these are compartmentalized areas. They are not. They are not separate. They are, in fact, one and the same. And that is what makes it difficult. When you are talking about macro, if you forget about micro, then you are in trouble. If you are talking about micro and you forget about macro, then you're in trouble. And I'll explain as I go along. So you see, arguments can be of two types. You construct an argument for any students. You can give a literal argument in words or a mathematical argument. There are functions, there are definitions, and so on. Now, you see, the easier one is the mathematical argument. Because why? Because you can easily check whether you're going wrong or not. The literal argument is toughest because it's very difficult to check. And therefore, you have to be careful, very careful. I'll give you some examples. Both need substantiation, or want of a better word. When you say something I've had one teacher in my undergraduate classes. We were all very scared of him because his proof of anything was to say very assertively, this is what happens. So you better not ask questions. Now that makes you wonder, is that really true? Or is it, I'm not being able to follow? But there are others who would explain to us why that statement is true. I think we should try for this other statement, that why are things true? I think our chair was kind enough to mention our book. I think that book was written with a specific purpose. And the purpose was that, it is not as if we want to do mathematics for the sake of doing mathematics. We want to understand and analyze some economics problems. And to analyze these problems, the only way that you can do so is by developing the level of mathematics. For instance, if you look at the structure of the book, it begins with just the formal arguments of what constitutes a correct statement. How do you see whether a statement is true or not? And then it proceeds. And the first problem we say is this question of how do you decide, let us say, given a criteria, how do you choose? Suppose you want to choose in a class the best student. How would you define best? Well, that is the first step. The first step is define best means that he scores the highest mark. That may not be the only definition. But if you define that, then it becomes easy because then you look at exam marks and the one who got the highest is the best. Suppose you say that I define the best student as one who has the most understanding. Now you are in trouble because you have to define what is the meaning of most understanding. Once you define that, then only you can prove. So we try to tackle such problems of choice. In any case, economics as we know it is really a question of taking decisions under various things, and of course policies, understanding these decisions. What steps are necessary for these processes are best shown by means of examples, and this is what we do next. Now, given the amount of time that we have, I can't really do much mathematics, but I'll explain how the formal arguments can be set up. You see, in I'll mention only two examples. Now, these two examples are from the literature. The first is from Indian economy. You see, in the year 1990-91, the Indian economy was going through a lot of problems. And therefore, I think it was under the prime ministership of P.V. Narasimha Rao, and the finance minister was Dr. Manmohan Singh, that the liberalization of the Indian economy actually started. Now, you might wonder, what is all this happening? Why are we getting into some political economy kind of? I'm not. At that time, there was a white paper which was produced by the Ministry of Finance, written by India's foremost economists, T.N. Srinivasan and Jagdish Bhagwati. So in that, the following thing was used: a decrease in tax rate, all other things remaining the same, will increase revenue. So this was in the white paper. And essential thing is the, then the second example is that an increase in the minimum wages will increase unemployment. I mean, this is also the standard argument that is used by the capitalist sector to say that, look, there should be no minimum wages. Now, strictly speaking, as I will show, and here my mathematics comes in formally, that there is a lot more to be said. And therefore, we need to understand. And therefore, we need to proceed carefully. Now, I have purposely chosen examples which are not standard micro examples. I've chosen examples which are from areas where, if you encounter them, the first you will encounter them is in a course on Indian economic history. The second you would probably encounter in a book of macroeconomics. But these are micro questions, no doubt. We shall take up these examples one by one. So let's look at this revenue and the tax rate example. You see, and here this is the passage from the book. You see, what is being said is, let me read this thing. Any added liberalization. Now, what does liberalization mean? It means that you allow foreign countries to come and sell their goods cheaply in your country. So therefore, any tariffs that you have, you lower it. So what is being argued here is that, well, look, not only do you get more trade, but actually by lowering the tax rate, you might get more revenue as well. So since I'll explain the diagram which I have managed to draw, this is the diagram they draw. So on the horizontal axis, you will notice is the tariff rate. On the vertical axis is revenue. So notice that at the origin, the zero revenue comes with a zero tariff, right? So that is the point on the revenue curve. Then they argue that if you were to go back to that, when tariff rates are prohibitive, nothing gets imported and there is no revenue. So that is at the extreme thing. Let me see if I can. You see here, for instance, oops. Here. You see, at the extreme corner, right-hand corner, you'll find that again you have zero revenue because no one is buying anything and the tax rate is very high. So the diagram argues that you will have the revenue increase, reach a peak, and then fall off. And since India has high tariffs, therefore India is currently likely to be somewhere here, it says. And so as you notice that if you reduce the tariff rate, you go back up the revenue curve, your revenue increases. This is the argument of Professors Srinivasan and Bhagwati. Now, as you can see, there is a problem with this diagram. In fact, this entire argument. I think much earlier when this was just came out, I used to teach a course in JNU called Mathematical Methods and Economic Theory. This is a compulsory course for MPhil students. So I gave them this diagram and I said, what is right with the diagram and what is wrong? Now, students being students, they wrote this, they wrote that, they wrote all kinds of things. But the essential argument is this, that the only part of the diagram which is technically absolutely correct is the fact that the revenue curve passes through 0, 0, the origin, and is upward rising there. The rest of it is not correct in general. That is, you need a lot of other assumptions to ensure that this diagram is correct. So if you do your micro properly, then you would realize that this is what is required. In fact, I went up, I used to know Professor Srinivasan quite well. He gave me my first job. So I asked him, everyone called him TN. His son also called him TN. So I said, TN, why did you write this? So he told me, why did you read that? It is not meant for you. So I said, but still, the argument, it's not as if this is incorrect. By the way, no. If your demand curve is a straight line, demand curve for your imports are a straight line and they intersect the axis, then this is what you will get. But if the demand curve for imports is inelastic, for example, and is, let's say, constant elasticity demand curve, then you don't get this. You don't get a peak. It goes up and up and up. So the more the tax tariff rate, the more the revenue. So then this last extreme right-hand point intersection is not there, nor is the peak. So it just keeps going on. In fact, in the essays in honor of, in memory of Dr. V.K.R.B. Rao, I worked this out. So I've sent a reference. It's there, I think oops. So zero tax rate means zero revenue, high tariff chokes off demand, single peak, country is to the right of the peak. How sure are we of each of these points? Only the first point is valid in general. Zero tax leads to zero revenue. The second onwards depends on a lot of other things. Excuse me. So if, for example, the demand curve is a straight line intersecting the axis, then everything holds. But demand curves are not like that, are they? If revenue curve does not have to turn back, see, for instance, justifying beliefs, the role of economic theory in this, that I have a paper, which is actually based on a lecture I gave to students, I think somewhere in CSP, in the Center for Economic Studies and Planning. And I spell all of this out. So in case people are interested, you'll notice that I have worked out the maths are all there. I just left the maths out. But the maths is straightforward. It just requires setting it up and realizing. So notice where things go wrong in this diagram, and I want to spend some more time. You have to realize where you are using mathematics. You're trying to see whether the function revenue as a function of the tariff rate, whether it is quadratic in nature. It may not be. It may not be like this. And therefore, your arguments or your conclusions will have to be made separately. That is, there are no second order gains to be made from lowering of tariff rates. Maybe you will make more money by selling your goods, but revenue from tariffs, no, that may not increase. Now, this unemployment and minimum wages, this again is a standard diagram I've used. You have wage rate against labor demand. And let us say that you have an inelastic labor supply curve. So that there is a certain amount of labor which is available to work for whatever wages it can get. And let's say that the market clearing W is very low. So society says that no, we can't have such a low wage rate. We must have a minimum wage and puts it at W star. Now, if that is your W star, then that is your wage rate, then notice that unemployment would be there because demand would be only this much. Supply, of course, is a lot more. Why is demand reduced? Well, because of profit maximizing motive of firms and so on. So one can show all of that. Again, is this correct? I must alert you to, before I go on, to an aspect of economics that has changed since the time that I have stopped teaching, over the last 10, 15 years. A lot of economics has become evidence driven. That is, you go to empirical evidence to support. And one such was used that the minimum wages contribute to unemployment. So don't have minimum wages. It depends on what? The downward sloping demand curve for labor. So if minimum wages are enforced, which are higher than market clearing, excuse me. So the conclusion follows. Labor for its own welfare should not insist on minimum wages. Because otherwise you don't get jobs. But we do have regulations which says every state has a minimum wage. Why do we have that? The point to note is that the very well noted contribution of Card and Kruger in the American Economic Review of 1994. In fact, it's a Nobel Prize citation work. Card was given the, I think Kruger should have got it also, but Kruger had died by then, I think. So Card got it. And what did they show? They studied the effect of minimum wage regulation in New Jersey in the US, in the fast food industry, where, you know, McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken and stuff like that. And they found that although there were high minimum wages, employment remained more or less the same. So there is no reason to expect that minimum wages would, in fact, affect so what is happening? Your students are going to be bewildered, because the other diagram I showed is also from a very well-known textbook. He's a Harvard economist, Mankiw. It's a standard reference. So that's what it is. And here is this. So what do you do? Several years ago, I think it was...
Sure. So,
Yeah. Is there a query?
No, sir. No, sir. It's an accidental conversation that crept into the discussion.
Can I continue? I have
Yeah,
a few more
sir,
minutes.
sir, you can continue. You can continue.
So a few more slides. You see, it can be shown that it is because of the assumption of perfect competition in the first diagram. That is, you don't get a demand curve if the market is imperfectly competitive. And what Card and Kruger studied were imperfectly competitive markets, fast food, so moving here, there, they can control their labor employment by jacking up route, not like perfect competition. What happens when there is imperfect competition? Well, again, I was asked to lecture at the Indian Labor Economics Conference, and my paper on wages and employment came out. It's standard micro though, but it is directed towards a macro question. So what I'm saying is that please don't make the mistake that standard micro means standard micro and nothing else. It means the whole of economics actually. The standard micro I should talk about. Perfect competition is when you have both demand and supply. So what is perfect competition? That is, every agent is too small enough to make a difference. They cannot influence the market price, nor can they influence anything. So when they hear of a price, they decide on how much to purchase or how much to sell. So you get your demand and supply curves, and that is perfect competition. It's the breakdown of the demand and supply constructs that lead to imperfect competition. That is, you can break them down one by one. That is, first demand breaks down, is not perfectly competitive. Supply is not perfectly competitive, so you get monopoly and duopoly and so on. And on the other side, you get monopsony and so on. And then when there are too many decision makers, they must take into consideration what the others are going to do. Then you have the advent of game theory. So basically, if I have to take a decision thinking of what my competitors are going to do, then I have to look at all the strategies and have to behave strategically. So that is game theory. So that in a nutshell is the reason why, and that's how we have wrote our book. And that is how our decision making was developed. There is one thing that we have not talked about, and that is the nature of the future. What is the future? Those of you who teach micro must face a question of the following type. Why are people always on the budget line? If people don't they save? Why don't they save? And then the usual thing, oh, micro is not very realistic. That's not true. It's because there's no future in these models, in these descriptions. So as soon as you bring in a future, you bring in uncertainty. You don't know what is happening tomorrow. You don't know whether things are going to go up or not. And so therefore, not everything would be consumed today. You'll hold something for the future. So that is what I said, because there is no future. Now, several ways of introducing time, money as a store of value, our introduction to general equilibrium analysis, I have done all of that there. And how do decision makers evaluate the future? Now, notice this is going to be very difficult because you and I, we look at the future differently. Some of us may be willing to take a lot of risk. Others may not wish to take risk. So how you respond to risk, that becomes very, very analytically difficult to handle. And therefore, see, when I started learning economics, there's the book by Samuelson, which one read. It was only by Samuelson. Now it's, I think, Samuelson and Nordhaus or something. It said there are three basic questions: what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. So replace the word produce by teach. What to teach, how to teach, and for whom to teach. If you answer these three questions, then your task becomes easy. It helps if students have done class 12 maths. That is often a loaded question. We used to have it, and then there was some political pressure. No, we don't need to do maths. And so that was gotten rid of, which made the task very difficult at the MA level, because they haven't done any mathematics whatsoever. So just imagine the kind of arguments that I was setting up. You wouldn't be able to give any of these arguments, although these are important arguments. So the fact that you are going to have a 4-year undergraduate curriculum gives you an opportunity to do all of this, provided you have some help that they know a bit of maths when they come. And I think by now, practically everywhere, there is a requirement that you need to know maths. But I think the most important point is how how to would involve this, how to teach would involve getting students to analyze and think. I've always told my students that think. When you see something written, don't buy it. Try to see whether it's correct. Convince yourself that it is correct, and only then proceed. Ultimately, what to teach, the teacher will have to decide what to teach, his or her abilities. So that is something that we can't, no matter what we say, we cannot actually force someone to teach something. So this has to come from inside. I think undergraduate teaching is crucial. And the foundational or basic courses should be taught by those who are more experienced. I have now shared with you lessons that I have learned. You see, the world over, the most experienced teachers get the students for their basic courses. Why is that? Because would have thought things out. They have fewer questions in their minds. The younger students who are more perhaps into some kind of research or some kind of interest, they have not thought things out on the whole. They would be interested in teaching specialized, focused courses. So they should teach those courses. In fact, you must be able to give the best thing for the undergraduate. These are the future that you are gearing. And I think that's about all. I've gone on for more than 45 minutes now. I think I'm getting hoarse. So I'll come to a stop. And if there are questions, I'll take them.
Thank you very much, sir, for your nice exposition of the basic problems that we have to face, and also the how economic theory, the variables are interrelated, how assumptions work behind it, where the mathematics can play an important role. So with this, you can raise questions. Participants can raise either through the chat box or through you can ask, but it's the best thing is to put it in the chat box.
Adira, if you have a question, you can now directly ask.
Yes.
Can I talk?
Yeah, sure.
My name is Siddharth, and I have a question. This argument you made of something that looked like a Laffer curve. Uh, I mean, do you have suggestions for any book that explains things like that? I mean, on the books I've been through for, say, economics, macro, micro, I never have seen such an analysis on that curve, and it would be
Well, as
great
I
if you.
said, I gave you a reference. I think the reference is with Dr. Varghese. It's in that essays in honor of. I have worked on it. I don't know why people have. I mean, they assume that it's going to be like that. It exists or it doesn't exist. You see, these questions are. You have to satisfy yourself whether it exists or not. So find just work it through with a, what the demand curve for a, let's say, unit elastic. product. You know what a unit elastic product is, right? Rectangular hyperbola.
Yeah.
You know that, Siddharth?
Yes.
Okay, so they just work out what the tariff rates and what would be, and you'll see that nothing happens. You don't get this thing happening. You see, the axis, sorry, if the demand curve does not intersect the axis, that is, there is no price high enough at which demand goes to zero, right? Some luxury item, Mercedes cars, for example, you think the price demand would go to zero regardless of what the price is? No.
No.
So basically, therefore, there'll be no tariff rate which would choke off that demand. So you don't get that right hand point. Once you don't get that right hand point, then you can't argue that the thing would have a peak and come down. That is what I meant. That is what I
Yes,
meant
yes.
by
What I meant is that such an analysis. I mean, what looked like you said it out so clearly, and I was wondering if you could suggest a book you could, which, yeah.
the book is your mind, Siddharth. You have to work it out in your mind. It's not easy, but you have to think and work it out by yourself. There's no book that I know of. I have written on it, so if you want to read that, you're very welcome. But it's there in that paper that I wrote. But there's no book which tells you all these things. If there
Thank
is
you.
a book which tells you all these things, I would just come and give you the title of the book and go home to sleep. Why should I tell you all these things? Waste my time, right? So if you are a
Yes.
teacher, then please think of this, that if what you are saying is all there in the book, then what's the point?
We can circulate the reference that Professor Anjan Mukherji has suggested. We can do that.
Yeah, please do that. You can circulate my
Yes, sir.
these slides.
uh,
Oh, I'll give you a cleaner version of the slides so that it's smaller. I'll send it to Dr. Varghese and he can circulate it.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Siddharth, I shall send you the reading material
Thank you.
and the titles of the books where Professor Anjan Mukherji is discussing all these things.
We can move on to the next question. Adira wanted to raise some question now.
She raised a question, but Santosh, can you see? Is it visible in your system?
Yeah, it's visible, but it's not a question like that. Of both.
Earlier she asked a question.
Adira, you can directly ask the question, Adira. Hello, Adira. If you are there,
she asked, her mic is not working, I guess. She asked that how to unwind these principles of both subject with the health related issue. That is a specific question. How we can actually see through specific issues like health or education or something like that. So that is what I feel.
Yeah, well, that is an entire research area, right? I mean, you have now books on health economics and economics of education, right? So you just, I think, basically look through I mean, if it is a question of just formulating problems, then you look at some of these journals and see what happens, what they do. Most of them are empirical. You see, they'll say that, look, does the midday meal happen to increase productivity? By the way, let me give you the result of research of who is the most famous economist of Indian origin in the US right now. Young. I'm ruling out my student. Okay, so he's not my
Abhijit,
student.
Abhijit Banerjee.
No, Avijit is my student, so I ruled him out.
Okay.
Raj Chetty?
Raj Chetty. Raj Chetty has a very good piece of research and which is very influential. In fact, you see, Raj's father was someone one knew very well because he used to be in Delhi for a long time. V.K. Chetty. He used to be in the Indian Statistical Institute. So Raj proved or showed that if you look at people's return in terms of salaries earned, which teachers were the most influential? So he had access to a lot of data. Like, I mean, he has been in the US. US is a place where data is readily, well, not readily, but it's available. And because he is in America and so on. So he showed that it was the elementary school teachers whose role was crucial. They affected. So immediately after the lecture, in fact, he gave this paper at IIT Bombay. And I happened to be present. I don't know how, but I was there. So I asked Raj that, look, Raj, if what you say is correct, then what on earth are we doing? Because we don't teach elementary school. So our contribution is what? But anyway, that's a different question. But if that kind of thing exists, actually, a lot of work is happening. And I think why, I have not talked about, for instance, things like, specifically not mentioned things like incentives. Why do people do whatever they do? Those are very crucial things in getting compliance, and how do you sort of frame policies which people automatically follow? What kind of coercions have to be there? What kinds of law and order? So all these things are important. So you can tell her that, look, I mean, I have not been able to answer the question about exactly what to do. Well, it depends, formulate a question. Formulate a question in health and education, and then we'll try to see what we can do. In fact, I think the only time I wrote something on education was when we looked at, I have now forgotten, actually, I haven't looked at that, but it had to do with the effectiveness of schooling and or the use of funds and what the schools did with it. So all these things, you have to formulate a question. First, formulate a question, because that is how you would, and then you look for what to do about it. So health, education, you look at the environment, I mean, all these things are there. But if you are You see, the problem is that if you think in a narrow, straight-jacketed terms that I'm going to do micro, or I'm going to do macro, or I'm going to do international trade, then this is not on. I think in many senses, this is what used to be classical. But now people are thinking in terms of questions.
Sir, there is a curriculum related question asked by somebody.
Okay.
So the question is actually a straight question. So what are the important points to consider when we prepare a syllabus for whether it is micro or mathematical economics? In that sense, to undergraduates program. Of course, we do have, as you said, concerns, but still being an expert and a teacher for a long period. So what should we?
I would suggest that you have to be fair to your students, because once the students leave you, they should not be able to say, oh, we were not taught this or we were not taught that. So you have to give your student a fair coverage of what the accepted thing is. So one or two books I can suggest. I mean, I have not looked at the books recently, but there must be. Hal Varian used to have a book on micro, intermediate micro, which used to cover practically everything under the sun. So that's a good book to use. Oh, there are others. I mean, this is something that I personally have taught. You see, the problem is that when I used to teach, none of these books were there. So it was mainly, I used to write up my own notes and circulate them, which I think is a good exercise for any student, any teacher actually, to write up your own notes for your students. That clarifies matters for you as well as for, but you can set that as the intermediate level micro from Varian. It's very difficult to have a better book than that. But at the same time, you should also be alert to things that are happening around and relate. So I've tried, therefore, to pick up topics from other areas which are relevant, because you do things like tax rates and revenue. These are standard questions, but then you throw them into a background of a Laffer curve kind of thing, and then it's the same thing. Laffer curve has another, I did not use that term Laffer. I forgot to tell whoever asked that question, Siddharth, I think. Laffer curve actually is something else also. It is whether or not the guy is willing to pay the thing. So it's another complication. You have to be careful. So does that answer? I mean, so there are books like this. And how much you can cover in and where you teach, how many courses? It will depend on how many lectures you will give. Incidentally, since you are going to have students for 4 years, there's one very good way of covering a lot of things which you can't cover in lectures is to give them tutorials. But tutorials means more work. Some of the best undergraduate programs, I have taught at some of the best undergraduate places, at LSE or Cornell, you had very sharp students. But you have to work very hard with them, because you have to give them essays to write, you have to grade them. And the essays are not necessarily about micro, but they're applying their micro to various things. So you could do that. That is, not only have a text, but also a fixed set of tutorials to cover.
Somebody has raised
Raise
their
the
hands.
Anu, sir, Anu.
Yeah.
Anu, please ask.
There are two more people, actually. You can collect also questions if you want.
Hello, sir. May I?
Sure.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for that lecture. I'm a early career faculty, and I face this question often by students. I teach introductory micro course currently, and I have the students they come from different backgrounds, meaning that somebody who's wants to do major in history also sits in economics because they want to do probably minor, or it's a mandatory course for them to do. So in such a kind of heterogeneous class, I often find it so rather difficult or overwhelming to introduce them to maths. Even if I introduce, they probably take themselves back, and they find it very hard. With your experience in training number of students, if you could give some tips where if we are addressing to some heterogeneous class like this, and how do we probably make good for the ones who want to major in economics, that they don't feel that this course is very light, and for them, for somebody who is probably doing a minor or doing a mandatory course, for them it is not too hard.
I think that's a very good question, actually. It's something that one struggles with, whether you are an introductory teacher or you have taught. So you have to learn this business of teaching at several levels. I think, you see, basically, if you look at the variant book is actually words and some diagrams. So you see, if you look at that book, you'll find that there's a lot of stuff that you can cover to a heterogeneous class. However, if someone starts asking that what good is it for me if I'm not going to be majoring in economics to learn all this stuff, then the question is, would you like to be able to read, let's say, newspapers commenting on economic factors or economic? So you have to, or in terms of jobs, when you go for jobs, you have to be sort of aware of what is happening around you. So you could split up the courses into 2 or 3 parts. That is, what you consider to be elementary, that is the first course, where you cover a lot of it. An intermediate course, that is an intermediate of the intermediate, and then an advanced course, which would be taken only by those who are going to major in economics. So split it up into these 3 levels, and that is one, it's somewhat artificial, but still that is the way to do it, actually. In fact, in our country, when we were students, there used to be this practice of subsidiary subjects. Now, subsidiary subjects are, you had an honors subject and a subsidiary subject. So subsidiary subjects were supposed to be inferior. I later found out that this was just a wrong way of doing things, because those subjects are as important. Maybe I don't want to read too much or learn too much in those areas, but I still would like to be taught well. So, this is something that you will have to, it's very perceptive of you to have felt this need that, look, how do we cater to several types of students? Well, at least the introductory part should be available to everyone. Everyone should know that. What is that? They should know, let's say, some basic micro. What does that mean? Something about perfect competition, something about imperfect competition, something about trade, something about how to construct an argument. What is it that you are trying to do? These kinds of things you can, in fact, and also, as I said about incentives, those topics are really quite interesting. Why do people buy insurance, for example? This entire question of the future, which I just brought in at the end, uncertainty. How do you tackle uncertainty? You see, if you have people coming in from the, basically farming background, for example, one of the major problems of the farmers, the uncertainty of the weather, and the harvest would therefore mean drastic differences in their earnings over the year. So how do they handle all of that? There's no book which will handle all of this. But if you can develop examples and make it interesting in terms of the theory that they can handle to understand such topics, that will make your courses more attractive.
Yes, sir. Somebody want to ask also. Jaskaran Singh, can you?
Thank you, sir, for letting me ask the question. Sir, I would like to mention your initial statement, as you said that economics in its construct, it's one of the most interdisciplinary subjects. And in Marshall in Principle of Economics mentioned J.S. Mill that the person is not likely to be a good economist who is nothing else. Really, economics is one of the subjects that takes help from other subjects and also give something to those subjects also. But in your concluding remarks, sir, you said that somebody should have math at +2 level. Sir, do you not think, sir, at graduate level, extensive use of mathematics sometimes it reflects as it divorce economics from rest of the social sciences. Sometimes being a teacher, sometimes I feel that mathematics and microeconomics a kind of like a horrible subject for the beginners in economics. Like if somebody from the outside, if somebody didn't take economics at up to the +2, and if he or she want to take economics at college level, we not think that this is a kind of neoclassical notion that we always seek help from mathematics for the resolution of economics. If we assume, if we take economics as a social science. Thank you, sir.
Well, I don't know whether I've understood your question properly, but let me try to see, answer at least what I think you are asking. You think that the use of mathematics makes microeconomics devoid of applications to other social sciences? That is just not true. In fact, you see, the kind of examples that I talked about those examples are very much crucial to general discussions in economics. It's got nothing to do with micro or macro or whatever. So if you can't talk about that, then if you can't understand what is happening there, then of course you should probably not be doing economics at all. The problem with economics is that one uses economics words, English words for technical things. So these have a definition. So you have to know what it means. Unless you know what it means, you won't be able to use them. So what's the use? And for other social sciences, well, as I have said, it's not only mathematics, most of my research has been on dynamical systems. That is, economics moving through time. How does it move? What happens? So the crucial point is the initial condition. To understand what the initial conditions are. If you don't have a sense of history, how on earth would you find out what is the initial conditions, how we come where we are? If you want to evaluate what kinds of policies would deliver results, if you don't understand political science, elements of what is going to happen, what people would carry out, or elements of some psychology or so on. So it is difficult, but so you have to know a lot of things, but it's not only mathematics. Mathematics is something that your organizers told me to talk about. So if I wanted to talk really about mathematics, then you would not be able to follow.
Yeah.
So I haven't talked about mathematics at all. So please don't make that mistake. That's why I have referred you to things that I have written, which they uses some mathematics, nothing very great, but some. But those things are there because that is the way to clinch arguments. Otherwise, as I have argued, for instance, there is a belief that small things may be neglected. Is that true? I'm asking you. Small things can be negligible. Should we neglect them? Does it make any difference? Well, most of the time you think that may not make a difference, but there are times when it makes even small things you can't neglect. And that is very crucial in things like, for instance, anyway, I can go on and on giving you examples. But so mathematics is required, but it's not the only thing that is required. Formulation of problems requires specification of a lot of things.
So from the side of teacher, one small request actually came up in the chat box. It is like sharing the slide along with sharing what probably can be taught or teach as tutorials. If you can sort of a description or anything, it would be better.
No. You can certainly look at the slides, Siddiq. I mean, that's not a problem. Dr. Varghese has them already. So I've asked them to you look at this. But if anyone wants me to comment on a possible curriculum that they have drawn up, it's very bad to ask me because I don't know what the students are like. You guys know what the students are like, right? So on the basis of that, if you draw up a list of topics that you would like to cover, I can comment on that. That I can comment on if you send it to me and give me a little bit of time. I'm somewhat slow these days. So I can certainly comment. That's not a problem.
Sure, sir. Sir, there is a person who want to ask something. Ramla, she raised her hand, but I don't know whether she is here or not. If she is here, she can ask. I think they are not.
Siddiq, I'm Haridar here. Can I ask a question?
Please, sir. Sure. Why not?
No, in fact, Professor Anjan Mukherji said that when we have this 4-year program, it would have been really good if they had done mathematics in the higher secondary stage. But in Kerala and in many other states, for these programs, there will be students who had not really done mathematics. Now, my question is whether it would be possible to think of 1 or 2 foundation courses as part of this 4-year program, where the minimum required mathematics is introduced by way of tutorials, classes, etc. Again, it's not easy for Anjan Mukherji to straight away answer this question. We will have to really feed him other details about the program and all. Then only he'll be able to. I would like him to make some general remarks on this. Specifics, of course, we can do.
In fact, I can tell you that we tried, but they all failed. Having some basic remedial courses. I think basically how much mathematics. How much mathematics is required, I don't know. I mean, maybe there are people who don't know any mathematics who are teaching economics in India. I mean, why should I object to their being there? So you want to teach some stuff, right? I mean, you get that thing, so start with that as a benchmark. This is what I have to teach. And then from that, see what mathematics is required. It may not be very much. But as soon as you say that, oh, you have to do this maths, you do that math, it makes a lot of difference. And you have to actually use examples relevant to them to make it interesting. So there are not enough good books, basically they look like notebooks, basically. So you have to, the responsibility is for the teacher concerned, basically. And that is the hard task.
Yeah, we will try, sir. But anyway.
Yes, I mean that's all I'm asking. If you try, your students would realize you are trying, and therefore he or she will also try. And therefore it is in that joint trial that you succeed.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Sir, whenever we talk about introducing more courses on mathematical methods for our undergraduate and postgraduate programs, so we are getting arguments from many colleagues from other disciplines, especially from other disciplines, who argue that when you introduce mathematics, your discipline becomes more and more deterministic in nature. But the subject is interdisciplinary, and the social phenomena that you are supposed to deal with is so complex, a lot of uncertainty is there. So in such a situation, why you are focusing or why you are arguing for more mathematical courses in your curriculum. So, how do you, sir? I would like to know your comments on this argument.
No. I think, Dr. Varghese, I think you're going about it the wrong way. Please say you're not doing mathematics. You want to analyze a problem in economics, right? So you raise the problem as a problem in economics, and to understand that, that's how my book has been written, our book.
Yes.
These are the problems that I need to solve. And these are well sort of understood problems of economics that we need to understand, analyze, all that. So to do that, we need mathematics. So it's not as if we do mathematics and then apply it to economics. So my approach is that this term mathematical economics is bad. We don't teach mathematical economics, you teach economics. Some problems that you analyze require some mathematics. So what? Some require history, some require statistics. So now even political scientists are using a lot of statistics and mathematics. There's nothing different, right?
Sir, I have a question. Hello. Sir, my name is Shibu.
Yeah, please.
Sir, my name is Shibu. I'm the assistant professor working in development economics, University of Calicut. Sir, when we apply mathematics to the foundation theory, we sometimes see that the theory itself fails. Like, sir, you were talking about the David Card and Alan Kruger's work. So same things when we apply in India also, like the foundation, like HOT foundation theory, like labor intensive, labor country should export labor intensive goods. So when we apply mathematics or empirical analysis, we get a more clear picture. Like after 1991, India is exporting more capital intensive, and India is importing like it's doing more capital exporting. So that is the beauty of max, sir, I think. And sir, I want to add that our undergrad syllabus is very, like, it has a 10-year lag minimum when we compare it with US. In the US, they give equal importance to max as well as economics. So that means they have less theories and more application. So in India, we teach more theories and we teach less application. So we don't have comparative advantage when we compare with other like US economists. So we have to update our syllabus like twice a year. Once the syllabus is roll out in the academia, so it takes 10 years to update. So there is a huge lag in updation, even the application, because the world now, even psychology use max. I mean, max is everywhere. We cannot eliminate mathematics because it's very common things. When we have to prove a theory, we have to do mathematics, right, sir? So what do you think about the updation of syllabus time to time? And we have to like merge our process with the United States or some countries who have more applications.
What has happened is that in America, colleges are really left to themselves to decide on what should be the syllabus. Here, for instance, in Kerala University is vast. So many colleges, all of them deciding. Now, you see, this is very dangerous because I tell someone to teach something, this should be the syllabus. Now, I might be able to teach that, but that person may not be able to teach it. So basically, here is the problem. You have to decide for yourself what should be the thing that you can teach. And there you do an honest job, then you should be able to teach a large number of things. And again, please don't say that I'm going to use mathematics. No. You are going to be doing economics. You're going to be doing economics and you have certain problems to analyze. And those problems can be analyzed as you said just now, that even in problems in psychology, Psychology problems are being used mathematics. In fact, one of the famous books on choice theory is by Duncan Luce. And Duncan Luce is actually a psychologist. So why do people choose different things? How? So these are things that, I mean, there's an element of choice everywhere. You are constrained by various reasons. You may not have much of a choice. If you are poor, then you don't have much of a choice. But still, you may have a choice whether to do this or that. So how do you decide? Now, you can decide one way or the other. You can toss a coin and heads I'll do this, tails I'll do that. That's also a choice. But we don't really do that, do we? So I think this argument that, well, not to have mathematics is I think just wrong, because then there'll be so many types of problems you won't be able to analyze. Are you saying that then these problems we don't analyze, we forget about them? When you don't learn any statistics, if you learn some statistics, you have to know probability theory. For probability theory, you need some mathematics. Now again, you get trapped in that.
Thank you, sir. I think if anybody want to ask, please. Otherwise, we can actually
Wind up.
because now it is 7.
7:50.
Anjan is very tired, in fact.
No,
He
I
can keep
enjoy
on.
talking
I
to
know he can keep
I
on.
don't know whether yeah, but incidentally, you should send me. Oh, someone called Anu has raised hand.
Yeah, Anu raised a hand. Yeah, please, Anu.
Thank you, sir, once again. I have one last question for you, or more towards understanding your viewpoint. Given teaching resources as constraint, right? Most of our faculties will be asked to teach several, papers, right? While one may or may not be expertise in all the fields, right? So, in such sense, I mean, your probably tips on for the early career faculties, how to go about it.
Oh, well, I think basically we all have natural inclination to teach some courses better, and we get to saddle with them, and then we don't get a chance to teach other courses, as would happen in my teaching career. In JNU, I never got to teach macro, for example, although I wanted to. There were so many better persons in macro in the department, so I never got a chance. But when I was abroad, I got a chance to teach macro. I enjoyed it, and my students enjoyed it also. Or development, for example. I mean, I enjoyed teaching development very much. In fact, so it's good to have some kind of expertise that is your first option, that this is my first option. And then your second option and third option and so on. But I think, you have to be very careful about assigning the basic You see, if you look at economics, the basics are macro and micro, right? Everything builds up on macro and micro. And then, of course, you put in some quantitative methods and mathematical methods and stuff like that. But those are side. Macro and micro should be taught by people who are experienced and who have a feel for the subject. The rest, you can just divide it up amongst whoever is available. So it is a serious constraint. And if you don't have people teaching a particular basic course, then you need to have someone in that area. You know, you have to look at it from the point of view of what serves the students best. So after all, you are there because of the students. And if you can help the students, then that is the way to do it. It is a bit of a problem if there are so many different courses and you have to teach so much. How many hours of teaching do you have to do? I mean, this is a question that I'm just asking.
I think it roughly varies between 9 hours per week to 16 hours per week.
Sorry, how many?
9 hours per week in general, on an average, or it can go up to, in some private universities or even at the government colleges, in some of the government colleges, it can go up till 16 hours per week.
But 16 hours is just too much. I wish that you didn't have to teach that much, because then your teaching output would also fall, right?
Yes.
Nine hours, even I have taught at times. In the initial stages, when we just had 6 people in the department, and we decided to cover a wide variety of courses because our students should not be made to suffer. That was our point. So we had to teach, but that dropped off, I must say. Odd years that used to happen, but we never taught that much. But if you look at the number of hours that one spent with students for MPhil, PhD supervision, those were enormous, actually. So I think 9 hours is basically 2 hours per day or something like that, let's say, 5 days in the week. So that is something that is tough, but it is doable. And it depends. You see, if some of them are tutorials or discussions or what have you, then that makes it easier. But it is difficult. It is a question, but that you need to address yourself. These are the courses that you have to teach. The problem is you don't have a choice about the courses that you have to teach. Someone is going to give it to you and say that you teach this. This is what I don't approve of. But then there's nothing that I can do about it, because that's the way we have been brought up. You see, there was a time when JNU had a center in Imphal that has now become a different university. But that time the Imphal center was part of JNU. I didn't know about it. So whatever we taught in CSP was being taught there also. But they didn't have our faculty. So they didn't have our faculty. So they had a tough time teaching because they didn't know what on earth was happening. So I objected. I said, look, why is it that they let them develop their own courses? So fortunately, they became a university by themselves, and then they developed their own courses. But otherwise, they were in a tough situation. And then they slowly said that, look, some of you may come over. So you have to go to Imphal to teach for a few days. So that's no way to run a program. I'm glad that in Kerala you are thinking ahead. I mean, it's not as if you have started this year and the syllabus is already there. You are talking about this, you're having some discussion. But ultimately, we can come and talk. But you are the guys who have to teach, right? So you have to realize what is doable and what is not. no matter what we say.
Thank you, sir.
Any more questions?
Siddiq, one question is by Deepak, a student, I think.
Yeah, actually, that's more on. Sir, he asked that it would like to know that first year students should do outside the classroom after the teaching, what they should do outside the class, other than the lectures from the teachers to excel themselves as a good economist. That is a kind of question. It's a broader question.
No, I think that if you are prepared to work hard, I can suggest, if teachers are, I would suggest that in the first year class, that you divide up the students. How many students would there be in a first year class in a college?
Around 40.
40
About?
to 50. 40 to 50.
40 to 50. All right. So break them up into 4 or 5 groups. How many teachers would there be?
6 to 7.
6 to 7. Okay. So fine. You divide them up into 6 or 7 groups and get each of them to prepare, let's say, on an essay on anything of local interest. It has got nothing to do with what, so they can use their whatever they are learning to write that essay. And then you can sit down and talk with them and then let them, you see, because often what happens is that in class, after all, you have what, 1 hour long lectures. So 1 hour lecture, what can you do? They let them define, or you can assign them topics. So you write one essay per month and you grade them. Discuss them. You may or may not grade them, but make it compulsory. I mean, so that people are forced to write. That makes really life quite. And the young people are always interested in doing this. They will go to the library, find out some things, look at newspapers, articles, this, that, and the other, and slowly they'll start doing things. Then very soon you'll have a very effective. You'll draw their interest and you'll keep them engaged, so to speak.
Harikumar, sir.
Yes. Okay.
You're welcome.
But then, Siddiq, can you give the proposed vote of thanks?
Oh, me? Yeah. Sure, why not?
Godwin is available or not, that I'm not sure.
Sir,
yes, I am here.
It's available.
Oh,
yeah, if the treasurer is available, naturally he has to propose the vote of thanks.
okay, then Godwin do it. Godwin, please.
Thank you so much, Professor Anjan Mukherji, for having an excellent kind of a session, because in which I don't think I should be spending any time in doing any other job, because it's an excellent, and I would wish that I request if your health permits, we would be quite delighted to have more sessions, as Professor Joseph was initially indicating. We would request at your convenience any time to come to Trivandrum. We'll keep on exploring that particular possibility with you, sir. Thank you so much from on my personal behalf, as well as from the Kerala Economic Association's behalf. Besides, today's the session was chaired by Professor Harikumar, who has done an excellent job, as well as he has been probably one of the pillars of Kerala Economic Association. So thank you so much, Professor Harikumar, for having chaired this session, as well as all my dear participants. I would request that if we would request you to be traveling with us in this particular journey of enriching curriculum. We will definitely continue this dialogue and trialogue later on as well, so you can actually become members of our association if you are not. So I would request you to visit our website and do the. Otherwise, if you can send me a message, or either of the office bearers will definitely seek out to help you do this particular process very easily. And Professor Harilal, the whole source of support and enrichment for all of us, energy for all of us to work is Professor Harilal. Such a beautiful, nice person, as a great academic who builds adds a lot of credibility to this association. Thank you so much, sir. And my dear colleague Sandosh Wagis, an excellent organizer, and all the kind of support, I think the partner in all the activities of KEA. Thank you so much, Sandosh Wagis, and my Siddiq, the Trivandrum regional coordinator, and my good friend, and all my participants. We have actually huge number of participants registered for this one, and all the KEA executive committee members and everyone present here, and especially Professor Joseph, who has been facilitating with very generously, and his magnanimity is actually quite praiseworthy. And all the support staff, who have been organizing and helping in this logistics part, etc. And everyone, thank you so much from the bottom of every one of us heart. And thank you so much. With this, I wish everyone a happy weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
In fact, no, sir, no, in your presentation, you had given enough indications regarding possible future lectures. On behalf of the KEA, your own student Siddiq will be discussing with you, and according to your convenience, availability, we will schedule future lectures. I'm sure that the participants, even now there are 50 of them continuing to listen to you. That means there is a very good group who are looking forward to your lectures. We will schedule those lectures, and details we will work out. I'm sure that I know that now we are asking too much from you, but we will have to make this request, and it's up to you to help us.
Well, I shall try. I can tell you this.
Thank you.
But more realistically, ask your people who attended for a feedback.
Sure.
Sure, sir. I shall share the feedback with you, sir.
Please do that, Dr. Varghese, because as someone asked that if you look at a heterogeneous group, I mean, I don't even see the group. I see some of you. I haven't seen the rest of the audience who are there. So it's a bit difficult. I have always thought I maintain eye contact with my students, as my students would tell you. So I try to find out whether they're following or whether it's here, that's not there. So please, that will help. In case we plan for something else, so then we can know what to plan for and how.
Yeah. In fact, no. If we can discuss and draw out a broad plan about the future lectures, 3 or 4 lectures, then the outline we can circulate, and we'll be able to really find out the people who are really interested. In fact, the continuous participation, even now, I can see 47 people are still attending. That means people are very keen. And we will be giving you the feedback. We'll collect it from more people. And then we will also discuss and plan out the future lectures, 3-4 lectures. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your time. And you are ready to take any number of questions, even at this late hour. So great.
Okay.
Sir, we would expect few lectures on the especially on the book that you have written, Mathematical Methods and Economic Theory. few lectures on the basis of that textbooks.
That is going to be difficult because it's on a diverse range of topics, you see. Well, you look at the book. If you look at the book, if you want me to lecture on some particular topic, you tell that. Let me not choose. So the book is there. So if you want me to talk on something, can talk on something. Let's see.
We will go through it and we will work out a plan and we will inform you, sir.
Okay. All right then.
Hi, sir. It's nice. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. It's a very excellent one. So lot of comments, positive comments, and a high level of appreciation we have received. I shall give the details of that. I shall send all the details.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Well, it's good to know that at least one can teach even now at my age.
It was very pleasant. In fact, no, it was not complicated. It was very straightforward. Using those two initial graphs, no, you built up the whole thing. It was a very good cap lecture. It was a very good cap lecture where you showed how you can branch out into very detailed inquiries. The way you brought in uncertainties, the way you brought in imperfections, the way you explain, no, how to interpret a graph, how to interpret a diagram, how it can be misleading, and how the same tools can be enlightening when it is properly used. So it was very, very, the lecture was very good introductory kind of thing. And then we can certainly build on this. Thank you, sir.
Okay, namaskar.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, sir.